The FIA Formula 3000 International Championship 2001 gets underway here on Eurosport from Brazil. It's a brand new race to the championship, and it's the first time the 3000s have ventured outside Europe to go racing. Hello and welcome to Eurosport's coverage of this opening round to the series that hopes to provide the future Grand Prix stars. I'm Ben Edwards. I'm joined by Gareth, Rees, former Formula 3000 driver, former British Formula 2 champion as well, as we look forward to this first race of the season. But before we get into the 3000s, let's just take you through the grid for the Grand Prix. Qualifying recently finished, and it's an all-Schumacher front row to the grid, with Ralph joining Michael on that front row. Williams BMW in great shape. Montoya on the second row, so good effort from him as well. Looking further on down the grid, notice the good performances from the Sauber twins of Räikkönen and Nick Heidfeld, with Olivier Panis out-qualifying Eddie Irvine on this occasion. Luciano Berti, the second of the Jaguars, up there as well. Further down the list, the two Benettons, I'm afraid, not going very well. Giancarlo Fisichella down in 18th place. Jenson Button way down in 20th position. Benetton Renault have an awful lot of work to do throughout the season. Now the lineup for the grid, as we were looking at just there, we have a slide. Welcome back to our Formula 3000 story as we get ready for the first race. Sorry about our little technical problem there. Now, a few weeks ago, the drivers in the 3000 series were busy testing at Silverstone. It was a rather chilly Silverstone, but dry for much of the 2 days that they were there. Plenty of drivers to watch out for in this year's championship, and some of the top teams, of course, with completely different lineups to those they enjoyed last season. Supernova, the most successful team, along with the Dams team in Formula 3000, owned by David Sears. They have two new drivers to watch out for in this year's championship. Mark Webber going into the season very much as a favourite. He was third overall in last year's series, and he'll be joined by Mario Haberfeld.
Sometimes a change is a good thing, so we have some colours from Benetton Renault, which are obviously at the moment we are still finalising some of the sponsors, but obviously this is a official how can I say, tie-up with the Formula 1 team, as we have Mark Webber, their test driver.
So your driver, Mark Webber, Mario Haberfeld, what are your ambitions? What can you hope with these two drivers this year?
Well, obviously they created, FIA created a teams championship a couple of years ago, and as we won that last year, we would like to try and win that as a team again. And hopefully one of these two drivers will be the champion of the Drivers' Championship as well. So I think that we will try and maintain our tradition.
Well, with the drivers they've got, there's a great chance of that. The Australian Mark Webber, as I mentioned, third overall in last year's championship with the European Arrows team. And now with the all-conquering Supernova team, the question is whether he can do the business. Also testing for the Benetton Renault team in Formula One, so he has a great opportunity to move up, and he certainly knows that he should be in good shape, running with one of David Sears' teams, of course, the Petrobras Junior team, the other team also owned by David Sears, and they took the championship last year with Bruno Junqueira. Webber joined by Mario Haberfeld here, but very happy about moving over to Supernova for 2001.
You know, it's obviously a very good team here at Supernova. They've got some very good results in the past. It's my second year in 3000, so I have the experience of the circuits now and also the experience of the chassis. So there is no confusion what I need to do to win the, I need to win the championship, and I finished third last year. I need to go 2 better. There's a lot of competition out there, obviously, also wanting to do the same, but we're pushing very hard to make sure that we can pull it off.
It's a crucial season for his teammate Mario Haberfeld. Had a couple of years in 3000 already, with West McLaren in '99 and with Fortec, which sadly is not playing a part in this year's championship, but has failed to score a point in either of those 2 seasons so far. So there's no doubt he will be expected to perform this year with Supernova.
Yeah, I think there's no pressure. I think the pressure is the same I have here, the same I had last year. Is always you're under pressure to have good results, but that's a pressure I think every racing driver has, and that's what every racing driver wants to do, is to have good results. So and the ambition for this year is obviously to do very well in the championship. As I said before, we've been doing very well in testing, so I just hope we can do the same job in racing.
Further down the pit lane, we come across the Nordic Racing team, and this team running Justin Wilson and Thomas Enge. Justin Wilson, the British driver, entering his 3rd season, and with Thomas Enge, the Czech Republic driver, also going into his 3rd season, a fairly promising driver lineup, and the Nordic team expecting some success.
We've changed a lot over the winter. Luckily, we've been able to keep Justin for another season. It's important to keep the continuity in the team. We've also got another good driver that's joined us, is Thomas Enge. The team's image has been improved a lot, and that's due to the resources brought to us by our sponsors. We just have to make sure we keep them happy now. Obviously, having such big sponsors, they are the best. They expect us to be the best, so that we don't let the side down, and that's going to be, that's our goal. That's what we've got to do.
Justin Wilson, one of 2 British drivers who potentially could win the championship, into his 3rd season. Last year, he finished in 5th overall, with a best result of a 2nd place at the A1 ring. The team perhaps didn't always provide him a car that qualified up front, but he raced well and consistently, and now he needs to perform.
I don't feel the pressure yet because, to be honest, I'm not looking too far ahead. It's better to take it one step at a time, and first of all, we've got to try and do well this afternoon, and then from there, look towards the first race. And rather than getting carried away with thinking about the championship, it's going to be a long year, and it's probably best if I don't think about it too much too yet.
His teammate is one of only 2 drivers to have won a race in 3000 coming into this season, Mark Webber being the other one. Enge won at Hockenheim last year, a dramatic last lap victory over his teammate Thomas Scheckter on that occasion. But teamed up with Justin Wilson, he knows that he's got a very competitive teammate once again that he's got to beat first before perhaps he beats everybody else out there. Still going into his 3rd season, he should have the background to be able to do that.
Yeah, it could be battle, but I mean, with every teammates, it is battle. Last year with Saelens, it was always battle in the test, in the races as well, and it was good because we were pushing each other to the front, and I think with Justin it will be same. So I think this is good opportunity for me and for him as well to be more quicker.
We move over to the Petrobras team now, the other David Sears owned outfit, and 2 new drivers for the team that won the Drivers' Championship and the title with Bruno Junqueira. Ricardo Sperafico is one of the drivers.
The cars have a lot of pressure in the corners now, have a more grip, and so you need trust in the car, and you need to take off the confidence. So you need kilometers, test a lot to feeling better the car. So now we take confidence a little bit, but we need to press more. I think with the races coming, we can better.
Riccardo Sbarafico, he has qualified extremely well, as has his teammate here, Antonio Pizzonia, the reigning British Formula 3 champion, who has moved up from F3 to 3000 and now has to perform at this level. He's performed at every level he's raced at so far. Most of his career has taken place in Europe, racing in the Formula Vauxhall Junior Championships, Formula Renault, and then Formula 3, and winning championships all the way through. So it'll be fascinating to see how he gets on in his first season of 3000, and certainly if yesterday's qualifying session is anything to go by, he should be up front throughout.
Of course, the first race will be very special for me. That's going to be the first time that I'll be racing in Brazil after karts. When I left karts, I came straight to England in '97, so that's going to be my first time there. I know the track a little bit because I did one test in a Formula 3 car, but anyway, it will be really nice to race at home.
So Antonio Pizzonia, one of the drivers to watch in today's race. This was Sébastien a few weeks ago. In just a few moments' time, we will be heading over to Interlagos. So coming up after the break, we will quickly review qualifying from yesterday and see how some of those front runners managed to qualify for today's 35-lap race. Stay with us here on Eurosport. Welcome back to Eurosport's coverage of the first round of the 2001 FIA International Formula 3000 race. I'm Ben Edwards with Gareth Rees as we're getting ready for the cars to come out on track and begin lining up on the grid. Before we do that, we have an opportunity to take a look at what happened during qualifying yesterday. And this, of course, a completely new track, not only for many of the drivers, not all of the drivers, but many of the drivers, but also, Gareth, for the team. So the teams really had to do a bit of guesstimation, didn't they, before coming here?
It's always very difficult, yeah. The teams have to learn exactly what gearing to use, the most important thing, but how to set the dampers up, because it's known as a bumpy circuit. But actually going there and learning how to set the car up in the optimum way is often luck of the draw, or using contacts with the F1 teams. Yes, that's a good one, of course, and I'm sure that Supernova, for example, with their tie-in with the Benetton Renault team, would have used that to the full. But in fact, it was the Petrobras sister team that really performed, outshone Supernova yesterday. Riccardo Sbarafico we're looking at here, and early on in the session, he went fastest overall, and in fact his twin brother Rodrigo, who's also competing in 3000 with a different team, also very quick in the early stages of the session. So it was good stuff from those two, but as I mentioned, for the Supernova team, wasn't going quite so well, and both Mark Webber and Mario Haberfeld seemed to be struggling a little bit yesterday, Gareth. Yeah, I think the fact that Brazilians were quick early on was no surprise, and they'll know the track more than anybody else will. But the fact that Webber was struggling, perhaps a surprise, although he doesn't know the track. He's a very talented driver and favourite for this year's series, and I would expect him to be on the pace from the word go pretty much.
Justin Wilson here we're looking at, the number 10 car. He was on the pace pretty much throughout the session, not quite enough to beat the Brazilians, but in the end he qualified 7th. Earlier on, at one stage he went fastest overall, dropped back down towards the end, but really it's mainly the Brazilians who are up ahead of him, although his teammate Tomáš Enge did just pip him towards the end of that session, and Enge ended up in 5th position. So Justin will be starting from 7th, but a good effort nonetheless, and we'll be keeping an eye on his progress throughout the race. The third season for Justin Wilson, as he is one of the many trying to work his way up to Formula 1. Now, interesting to see the other Petrobras car also going well. We mentioned him from Silverstone, Antonio Pizzonia. Now, I'm pretty impressed with what he's done, Gareth, because, of course, he's made that step from Formula 3 to 3000, and they are very different cars to drive, aren't they?
They are very different. He's had plenty of hype through his journey through F3 and into 3000, and so far I have to say he's lived up to it. 3000 is a different kettle of fish to F3, not in terms of the cars, or not just in terms of the cars, but in terms of the pressure. It's a higher profile series. He will now really feel the heat if his PR people are pushing him as much as they have been. He will have to come up with results, and so far in F3000 he has done.
Well, certainly yesterday he did, because he was up there setting fastest times along with his teammate, and I was pretty impressed with that, I have to say. As the temperatures came up a little bit, times slowly improved, the leaders began to put on new tyres, and the battle really began for pole position. Pizzonia definitely one of those playing the game and up there with his Brazilian teammate. No doubt trying to make the most of being on home territory. But a few moments later, it was in fact an Italian that we saw go very quickly. Giorgio Pantano from Italy, a karting specialist in recent years, but more recently the German Formula 3 champion. He put the fastest time in early on in the second session. So good effort that from Pantano, making his debut in Formula 3000 as well. We've got both the German and British Formula 3 champions from last year making their debuts this weekend in Formula 3000. Pizzonia was in the pit lane having new tyres fitted to his car in readiness for another attack as Pantano continued to set these impressive times, driving with Team Astromega and with backing from Team Brask, hoping to take him all the way through into Formula 1. Meanwhile, another Brazilian that we were keeping an eye out on was this one, Jamie Mello Jr. He was also fitting new tyres, and Ricardo Speraffico was also getting ready for that final part of the session as they all tried to break the 1 minute 27 second barrier which they were at this point. Now, Gareth, when it comes to qualifying in these 3000 cars, it really is crucial, isn't it, to make the best use of those tyres?
Yeah, you put the tyres on, you go out of the pits, you get one outlap, perhaps two outlaps, and then the tyres are at their optimum. You really have to use them then. That's when they're stickiest. You get probably 2 laps at most in a hot country like Brazil, perhaps a lap and a half, where they're really at the very best and giving you most grip. After that, if you haven't done the time on those 2 laps, forget it. You'll never get it back.
Well, Speraffico went out and did that 26.804, which set a new target for everyone to try and beat. Pizzonia then having an attack himself on that pole position time of his teammate to see whether he could improve, but it wasn't quite enough. 27.046, a couple of tenths of a second slower than Speraffico. So Pizzonia at this time didn't quite have the edge, but still very impressive with his first official qualifying run in Formula 3000. Meanwhile, the Supernova car of Mario Haberfeld was off in the gravel. Things are not quite working out. Now, Haberfeld, another Brazilian, but of course has done most of his racing more recently in Europe, so no recent circuit knowledge to fall back on here. That was the shot of Mario just pirouetting off and into the gravel trap. And unfortunately, his teammate Mark Webber also suffered this spin. Fortunately, didn't do any damage, and he was able to come back out and put in some quicker times, but still Mark found himself at the end down in 10th position on the grid. Now, Jamie Mello was certainly making his presence felt, moving up into 3rd position with a 27.096, but nobody seemed to be in a position to match Ricardo Speraffico's time of 26.804. We thought that he was going to be able to hold on to that pole position. It looked as though the championship-winning team from last year with Bruno Junqueira had started off the 2001 season in much the same style. Speraffico using the Formula 3000 experience he's had in Italy, winning the Italian Formula 3000 title last year, and his experience of driving around this Interlagos track, a tricky, demanding circuit at the best of times. It looked as though he was going to be the one. But suddenly, on the final lap of qualifying, it was the man in the blue car, Jamie Mello, whose last outing here at Interlagos saw him win a South American Formula 3 race, so plenty of circuit knowledge for him to use. Suddenly, Jamie put in a fantastic last-ditch effort.
Yeah, I think you hit on the head when you said he won his last race there, because last season in 3000 he did nothing. He was with one of the best teams, Petrobras team, and really he just disappeared. And the fact that he's won a race here in the past, I think, explains why he's so far towards the front, why he's on pole.
Interesting also, though, Gareth, that he's back with this team, the Durango team, a team I know you've driven for in the past.
Yeah, again, I was surprised that they were so far up. I mean, they're a nice bunch of guys. Perhaps could do with being a little less erratic. I mean, they can do the job, but not on a consistent basis. That's their problem. And I will be surprised to see Melo sustain his challenge through the season.
Well, we'll have to see whether he can sustain the challenge through the race as well. He's got pole position, and only the 2nd ever pole for the Durango team, and there was a lot of delight down there in the pit lane. They had to sit out last season. They hadn't qualified through. Last year you had to qualify to be one of the teams, in fact same this year, although this year a number of teams have dropped out through financial reasons. Durango are back, and they're back with Jamie Mello, and amazingly, on their return to the series, they've gone and taken the first pole position of the year. It seems to be a little bit of a surprise to Speraffico, who ended up 2nd, Ricardo that is, with his brother Rodrigo ending up 3rd. But Jamie Mello, pretty happy.
On the beginning it was a little difficult, but after we changed the car, and we got a good balance, and I'm very happy.
Confident for the race?
Yes, I'm very confident, and I think we will have a good car.
So that's Jamie Mello, who takes pole position for today's season opener in the 3000s. Ricardo Speraffico ahead of Rodrigo, and second and third places. Pizzonia fourth on the grid, Thomas Enge fifth, then Pantano, Wilson, David Saelens, Haberfeld, Mark Webber in 10th. Garcia 11th ahead of Bourdais, Leinders, Darren Manning in 14th, further down than we might have expected, ahead of Golan, Filiberti, Derek Hill, Piccini, Lancieri and Camatias. And then the last couple of cars, Maslov, Verano, Justin Keane, the British driver, making his first outing in 3000, ahead of the German Friesacher, who only managed 2 laps in qualifying, so he may well be able to move up through the grid. Now, we've seen the remarkable success of the Speraffico brothers in this qualifying session so far this weekend, and a couple of weeks ago, when they were testing at Silverstone, it was a slightly different story. At that point, Rodrigo didn't have a ride for the season. He only actually firmed up the deal with Coloni last Tuesday. But anyway, they've ended up both racing in Formula 3000. A few years ago, they both raced in the British Formula Ford Championship. But here they are, they've moved up through the ranks, and they're now up at the Formula 3000 level. Ricardo, perhaps more fancied with a top team, and enjoying it as well.
Yeah, we have a lot of fun with my brother, and the team manager talk with, we change, it's about you, not him, we signed a contract the wrong driver, but this is, I have a lot of fun in the compliments, you're Paul, no, him, go. So, no, we have a lot in the customs, we changed the passport, so everything you think is have a fun.
The advantage of being a twin brother. And I wonder if they do mess the teams up by trying to hop in each other's cars. That really would mess things up a little bit. Last year, Rodrigo finished 4th in the Italian 3000 series, while his brother won the championship. Ricardo then signing with Petrobras, while Rodrigo struggled to find a drive before ending up with Coloni.
I'm and Ricardo always fight together because we are always in the same team. Last year we separated the team, but we continue fighting because for example, in 3000 the car is so similar, and I'm and Ricardo drive also so similar. So funny. Every time when I'm in the top, he's follow me, and sometimes and I follow him. But every time everybody made a confused, you know. Who is better, you know? Well, no, sometimes him, sometimes I. Just to don't do the confusion, you know. But it's funny, everybody changed. So now we had changed the jack, you know. But no, like yesterday, yes. Well, you again eating now, Ricardo. It's funny.
So, Rodrigo, in his rather halting English, telling us what fun it is to be mistaken for his brother on occasions, and I think that's going to provide plenty of entertainment throughout the season in Formula 3000. Coming up after the break, we will be live at the Interlagos circuit in preparation for the 35-lap race to begin. Welcome back to coverage from Brazil as the 3000s now line up on the grid in preparation for this 35-lap race to get underway. And Jamie Mello, the car on the left-hand side of your picture there, just briefly, there he is, the young Brazilian who will be starting from pole position after that superb effort in qualifying. Just 20 years old, going into his second season of 3000, as we mentioned. And Gareth, he's now got the rest of the field behind him, which is exactly what he wants. Let's just have a look at the pressure that he's going to be under, though, because he hasn't started this far up on a 3000 grid before.
Yeah, there's that, and also the fact that he's in his home race and in front of all his home crowd as well, so that's extra pressure, because I'm sure the local media would have been on his back over the last 24 hours since he secured pole, so double the pressure as normal, so he's going to have a hard afternoon, I think.
We're looking at the grid, the bottom end of the grid now, as we work our way on down the list, and now towards the back of the field. Patrick Friesacher, just watch out for him, as I mentioned, only 2 laps in qualifying yesterday. First session they had an electrical problem. Second session he went off after 2 flying laps, so he did pretty well to actually go ahead of a couple of other drivers. So we shall keep an eye on his progress, but Jamie Mello is the one up front and hoping to take his first 3000 win of his career. He's raced quite a lot in the South American Formula 3 Championship. He was second in the series in both 98 and 99. So, of course, that's given him plenty of experience of this particular track. And Gareth, that first left-right down the hill, the Senna S, it's quite tricky, isn't it? In the past, we've seen a lot of Formula 1 cars get into trouble down there.
Yeah, because they arrive so very fast. I mean, you're arriving sort of flat in fifth gear at sort of 200 kilometers an hour. It's very quick. As you turn in, it's very bumpy as well, so the temptation is to carry too much speed in, and on the bumps it gets light, it's easy to lose control, which is why the cars struggle a little bit there.
Right, yes, and we'll just have to see whether this field of 26 cars is going to be able to make it through that first corner safely. Now we're looking at twin brother, the second of the two, if you like, on the grid. Anyway, this is Rodrigo's Sbarafico in the Coloni entered car. This is the white machine, so it's different colours. His brother in the Petrobras sponsored car, remember. So Rodrigo starting in third place on the grid. Both of them were racing in the Italian series last year, and in fact Britain's own Warren Hughes also, of course, was one of their main rivals in that championship. Gareth, it seems to have been quite a good grounding for them, doesn't it? At least for this race where they've got circuit knowledge.
Yeah, I mean, you mean the cars were good grounding for them last year, you mean?
The whole series, the 3000 championship in Italy, fairly competitive. The cars are not quite identical, are they?
Very little difference. I mean, these cars are slightly more advanced, the European-based cars, but really they're just an evolution of what they drove last year, so there's not a lot of difference, which is why they found it fairly easy to make the transition. So that and the fact they got experience of the Brazilian circuit has seen them right at the front.
Well, here's the top rookie in the field this year on the grid for this first race. That is Antônio Pizzonia, Jungle Boy, the man from the Amazon region of Brazil. British Formula 3 champion last year. Had quite a battle with Tomáš Scheckter throughout the course of the season, but came out on top driving for Manor Motorsport. Now moved up to this higher level, looking very much to try and graduate into Formula 1 as quickly as possible, as are pretty much all of the drivers on the grid down here. And you have to say it's an impressive first outing. Okay, he is Brazilian, we're in Brazil, but nonetheless you've got to do the job, and he did it yesterday.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, I mean, last year he proved how good he is by winning the F3 Championship in Britain, which is only ever won if you're a good driver. He took his eye off the ball slightly towards the end of the season because he got distracted by talk of Benetton, race seats and test seats and so on and so forth. If he can keep his concentration and focus on the job in hand, I think he'll be a force this year.
So Pizzonia will start on the second row of the grid. Thomas Enge is next up, but the grid is clearing now, and the cars will be led around by Jamie Mello on the formation lap. Starts up on the outside here in Brazil. That's the clean line, but remember, it's not actually the inside line for the first corner. It's slightly unusual in that respect. Away they go. Look, that looks like Pizzonia.
Yep.
I think that's Pizzonia. Somebody else has stalled it. Now, of course, many of these drivers, first time they've tried to get one of these things off the line. Pizzonia has got away. Not sure that the other car has, so we'll try and keep an eye on that as the rest of the cars. This is that first sequence we were talking about. Dropping down the hill, it's pretty much blind on entry.
Haberfeld.
And that's Mario Haberfeld, so that's a bit of a shock to see Mario Haberfeld. He will be starting right at the back, I think, now. Let's see whether they can get him going safely as they try to get him started. And that is a great disappointment. Mario Haberfeld, the Brazilian, who should have been starting in 9th place. The two Supernova cars were lined up together on the 5th row of the grid. And, well, we'll just have to see if they can get that car started safely. Now, if they can get it going quickly enough, you are now allowed, I think, to retake your spot if the cars are still heading round, but it will depend how quickly they get him going, and we'll have to keep an eye on that. Otherwise, he's going to have to start from the very back of the field. Meanwhile, the other cars coming through. There is our poleman, Jamie Mello, leading them round, with Riccardo Sbarafico following him at this stage. Number of cars, new colours, new drivers to watch out for in 3000 this year, of course. It tends to be a formula of change. You get some guys who perhaps stay in it for 2, 3, possibly more, but generally 3 years is the limit. You're either going to move on into professional racing at either sports car or Formula 1 level, or go off and do something else pretty much after 3 years, I think.
I did.
And so we'll have to see how some of these youngsters get on. Brazilians all up front, top 4 Brazilians on the grid. Then it's Thomas Enge, Giorgio Pantano, Justin Wilson, the best of the Brits, in 7th place. David Saelens, keep an eye on him, 8th on the grid. Has had a few problems on the opening laps of races in the past. Haberfeld, as we know, has had his problems. Mark Webber, we can just see him in picture there with the very similar colours to the Benetton Renault Formula 1 team as they all head around this 2.667 mile Interlagos racetrack. They've seen the Formula 1 qualifying, And now it's their turn to go out for the 35-lap race. Very, very warm indeed. You can see there's a bit of a breeze blowing, but temperatures really are pretty high, so quite a tiring event as well. The first round of the FIA International Formula 3000 Championship is about to get underway at the Interlagos track in Brazil. I'm Ben Edwards with Gareth, Rees, as we're all ready for the start of this year's championship. The cars peeling into position. Jamie Mello, Ricardo Sbarafico, Rodrigo Sbarafico and Antônio Pizzonia, the 4 Brazilians that head this grid as we get ready for the start. The last few cars still moving into position. I don't think Mario Haberfeld has retaken his place. There he is right at the back of the field. So Haberfeld will be starting at the back of the grid, and he's going to have plenty of work to do to try and get anywhere near the front. It's going to be so tough. These cars are virtually identical. They are the same chassis, same engine combinations throughout the field. It all comes down to how well your team sets the car up and how well you drive it. And that's what it's down to. And Haberfeld will find it tough trying to work his way through from the back there. He may even decide to play it a bit cautious at the first corner and let all the accidents happen in front of him, I would imagine. Now, the lights are going on. Wait till all red lights are on, and then we wait for the lights to go off again, and the Formula 3000 season gets underway. Oh, it's a bad start for Sbarafico. Ricardo Sbarafico, terrible getaway there. Good start for Jamie Mello. Mello, the pole man, into the first corner ahead. Beautiful for him, but Sbarafico really didn't get away well.
No, Pizzonia's gone into second. He took advantage of it on the outside. He's into second.
So Pizzone, and we've got a spinner down there at the first corner, and everybody else so far has managed to avoid him. That's amazing that they got through there cleanly. Pizzonia up into second place. Great getaway for him, and it's Rodrigo Sbarafico who's come up into third position. And in fact, where is Ricardo? Ricardo Sbarafico seems to have dropped back, I think. So after that very poor start, I think it might have been him that ended up spinning. We'll have to check on that in a moment. Up front, it's Jamie Mello. Yes, indeed, that is Ricardo Sbarafico, the man who was on the front row of the grid, who seemed to have pole wrapped up until the last lap yesterday, and he is out. And that was really down to his terrible getaway. Just sat there on the grid, didn't get away, was swamped by everyone else, and no doubt was still trying to jostle for position as they went through the first corner.
He probably got involved in a touching situation in the first corner and got spun round by the look of it. Yeah, it's his car there, and he got hit as well, unfortunately.
Yeah, you can see that left rear's been ripped off. So watch at the back here. We're watching for Mario Haberfeld's made up a few places. And look at this, Mello. What's happened? Mello has dropped back here, and we have a new leader. It is Antônio Pizzonia with safety car. No overtaking now. I wonder if he'd already backed off and the less experienced Pizzonia went past under yellow. We'll have to wait and see what happens there. Whether the safety car was informed or whether Jamie Mello has a problem, I'm not too sure. But Pizzonia comes around in front, and now there's no overtaking allowed as he's followed by Rodrigo Sbarafico.
Mello's still there, so whether that indicates, like you said, he saw the yellow flags and the others didn't. He hasn't pitted with a problem, though, does it?
No, so it could just be that he backed off when he saw the yellows out, the safety car signs come out around the track, and there is the safety car now out and into the pits. That's Giorgio Pantano who's come in, the Italian, so obviously there must have been contact. I wonder if he was the one who ended up hitting this car of Ricardo Sbarafico. Look at this damage to both left-hand wheels on that car, and we'll wait to see whether Mello, who's now in fourth in that lineup, will retake his position up front, or whether he had already lost the place. This was a replay of the start, and we might well see what happened here. Yeah, right on the outside.
He ran wide.
He basically, his mistake, he went wide and lost it. Welcome back to Eurosport's coverage of the first Formula 3000 race of the 2001 season. Race order after a couple of laps. Well, now on the official classification showing Jamie Mello up front. Now that's interesting because, of course, Jamie Mello slowed down just before we saw the safety car come out, and he was overtaken by a number of cars, particularly Antônio Pizzonia, Rodrigo Sbarafico, and Tomáš Enge. And that's the way they were heading around the track. Yes, still in that situation at the moment. Now, whether they're going to change that. Gareth, the way you looked at the replay a moment ago of when he backed off, and you think that it really looked like he had a problem?
Yeah, it wasn't like he'd missed a gear or whatever, or engine stutter or something where he just lost a bit of momentum. You could see him actually slowed the car quite dramatically. Obviously was braking. And the other guys had no option but to go past him, I would have said. It was that or hit him. Now, whether he overbraked because he saw the yellow flag or the safety car sign, I don't know, but it seemed odd. It didn't seem to be normal, not like a driver would normally just lift off when he saw the yellow flag. He wouldn't just suddenly jump on the brake, because it is dangerous.
That's right, so we wait to find out, but he hasn't been into the pits. We did see Giorgio Pantano come into the pits. Possible contact between him and Riccardo Sferafico at that first corner, although just before we went to the break we saw the replay and it certainly looks as though Sferafico had got himself onto the dirty outside part of the track and really just ran out of grip, didn't he?
Yeah, simple as that. I mean, I think it's very dirty offline here in Brazil, and that's what he did. He lost his head with his bad start, I think, tried to make it all in one corner, ran wide and just spun and hit the tyre wall back into the track, and luckily was avoided. I think the damage on the car is actually where he hit the tyre wall.
Now, you were saying to me just a moment ago that, in fact, these cars are not as difficult as some cars to get off the line normally.
They're not, actually. I mean, Formula 3 is certainly, in my experience, was the hardest car to get off the line. To actually balance that sort of clutch and revs was very difficult. These things aren't too bad. I used to just sort of leave it on 7,500. When the lights went out, just let the clutch out just very gently and then let it all the way out. And used to just go all the time. I don't recall ever making a bad start in this level of 3,000. The older type car in 3,000 was harder. There's Sferafico looking a bit disappointed.
Yes, understandably. That's Riccardo Sferafico, who seemed to have it all to play for here, starting on the front row of the grid. But that poor start, as you say, really putting him off and perhaps making him try a little too hard at the first corner. Now, I've just noticed they've readjusted that official classification, and it is now, as we see it on track, with Pizzonia leading, and Pizzonia up front at the moment, with in second place his brother, this man's brother, Rodrigo Sferafico, getting some consolation from the Petrobras team there after the disappointment. He can't believe it, can he? Poor Riccardo in front of his home fans. What an opportunity he had here.
I can fully sympathise, having been there myself and done a similar type of thing. I mean, you build yourself up and hype yourself up before the race, and the adrenaline's pumping around the system, and you only consider getting a good result, and suddenly it's snatched away from you. And I think the guy's probably in shock. He just can't believe that suddenly the race is over.
And particularly when it's basically your own mistake as well. I mean, that bad start was what caused it. He may well have then had a bit of a nudge from somebody, but it was the bad start that set it all off.
Absolutely. Well, as an ex-driver, Ben, you know how I'm feeling as well as I do.
I know. I've made enough mistakes in my time as well. Anyway, let's concentrate on who's leading now, and out of the British Formula 3 Championship and into a 3,000 car, it is Antonio Pizzonia, a man who spent last year pounding around all the national circuits in the UK. The safety car is in, and he now will set off again the restart of this race. And look at the other Sferafico coming up the outside. Thomas Enge coming down the inside. They're all over the place as they come down the hill, and Pizzonia's just managed to hold on in front. Good driving from the young Brazilian, who stays ahead. Oh, and we've got another spinner in the midfield there.
Enge's second as well.
Enge into second place, the Czech Republic driver into second place. Justin Wilson is in fourth and trying to get through, as our spinner there is Bas Leinders. Bas Leinders is the one who's in trouble down at the first corner. Meanwhile, Pizzonia, Thomas Enge, then Rodrigo Sferafico, Justin Wilson comes through, and we had another car off in the background there. I didn't see who that was. Oh, indeed, it's Gabriele Lancieri, one of the Italians who's come over from Italian Formula 3000, so he's out of it as well. And let's keep an eye on what Jamie Mello can do. His teammate, Jamie Mello, who started on pole, I wonder what's happening to him. He was the one that dramatically slowed down earlier. Take another look. Lancieri just lost it on his own by the looks of things there, just a bit carried away.
Yeah, I think so. I think, mind you, 2 or 3 cars have gone off there in qualifying. It's obviously a little bit bumpy there and a bit grip-free, as it were. I think it's easy to go off.
Jamie Mello is still up in that group, but he's not really doing anything particularly special. Pizzonia, there's Thomas Enge into second place. The one of only 2 drivers to have won a 3,000 race before. That was Hockenheim last year in drying conditions. It started wet and dry towards the end, and he took a dramatic last lap victory. But at the moment, look at this man, Antonio Pizzonia. The Paulistas who are here in the grandstands will be enjoying this. This man might not be from Sao Paulo itself, but he's Brazilian. That's all they really care about, and he's leading the 3000s as they head around to complete that first true flying lap. Bit of a slide through the Senna S, but keeps it under control as the rest of them follow through.
He obviously wasn't concentrating, I think, when they restarted the race there, because I think he allowed the other cars to close up on him. Rather than get a good run out of the last corner and onto the front straight, he allowed the cars behind to get too close and get a toe off of him, which put him under a lot of pressure. But he's obviously cleared that now.
Using plenty of road, isn't he? Almost on the grass on the turn-in as he took the left-hander there. There is Lancieri out of his car. So no problems for him. He's fine as we continue. Don't ignore the standings you can see there. It shows David Saelens up front. I don't quite know where they get that from. David Saelens at the moment is somewhat further down than that. Let's see him. He's ninth position at the moment. So David Saelens definitely not leading this race. It is this man, Antônio Pizzonia, in the number 3 Petrobras entry, the team that won last year with Bruno Junqueira, and doing fine things once again at the start of this race. Still some way to go, of course, but he's pulling away little by little already. Just taking a look at some of the slow motion action. Pizzonia correcting it beautifully and continuing on his way, climbing up the hill, now coming around past the main grandstands onto the start-finish area. Very bumpy along here, and they build up the speed to maximum speed down towards the end of the straight, and then they stand on the brakes down at this area, down to second gear, turning in pretty much blind, and then trying to keep it all under control, over the curbs a little bit, over the bumps, and accelerating through the left-hander. Great stuff this from Pizzonia so far, as he's chased by Enge, Spirafico, Justin Wilson in 4th place, Jamie Mello in 5th, and Mark Webber running pretty well. He's in 6th place. Remember, he started down in 9th position, so he has managed to make up a bit of ground. In 10th place, in fact, it was for Webber. So he's used his head, and that's got him into the points, scoring down to 6th place. So that's valuable stuff indeed for Mark Webber. But so far, it's this man, Pizzonia, who carries all before him. Giorgio Pantano quite a long way down, as you can see, after that pit stop that he made, but saved to a certain extent by being under safety car, so he's still on the lead lap. Pizzonia leads and pulling away slightly from Thomas Enge. Down the fast left-hander before they start heading around, back up past the grandstand areas through the Juncal turn, and then climbing steeply uphill as they head around towards the start-finish area and accelerating hard. He glances in his mirrors, but you have to say, Gareth, that he's driving really well and just gradually edging away.
Yeah, it does seem to be edging away. He looks pretty comfortable at the moment, but there's a long way to go yet.
A long way to go, and of course he's not used to... They have actually reduced the length of these races slightly for this year, but it's still somewhat longer than a Formula 3 race.
Yeah, I think that's a bad thing. I mean, these drivers are supposed to be getting prepared for Formula 1 or Indy cars, and to reduce the length of the race is you know, they should be getting used to learning how to look after the car over a longer race distance, look after the tyres more importantly. And like you said, he's only done F3 before, so he might go too hard too soon on his tyres and hurt them. And Enge's got more experience in these cars, so he may benefit later on the race.
Well, we'll have to see whether that plays out as we go through the race. Of course, Pizzonia from Formula 3, Formula Renault, which are very much sprint events, aren't they? I mean, in Formula 3, it's all about the first lap on cold tyres in many ways. If you get the break initially, then you should be able to hold on to it. Looks as though there was a little bit of a change further back at the field. The 2 Red Bull cars are running around together, Patrick Friesacher and Antonio Garcia. Those 2 cars are running around together. Friesacher trying to make up for that lowly qualifying position from yesterday after he had electrical gremlins and then a spin in the 2nd qualifying session. But moving his way up through the order a bit.
Yeah, I think they're 10th, 11th and 12th, these 3, so they've moved up a little bit, helped by the mild carnage you've had so far.
Yes, but not too bad carnage compared to sometimes.
No.
Especially for a first race at a new track. A completely different set of circumstances for all of the drivers this year. Looking there at Andrea Piccini going through. There are the 2 Red Bull cars at Garcia and Friesacher, and I think Friesacher now trying to have a go at getting past Garcia. The Austrian driver, Patrick Friesacher, trying to get down the inside. Oh, against his teammate. This is challenging stuff, isn't it? And I think Garcia's just held on to it there. Did we take another look at that as Friesacher and Antonio Garcia wheel to wheel through the Senna S. Great fun to watch.
That was close. I think the old team boss must have had his heart in his mouth then. I think Friesacher's ahead, actually. Friesacher is ahead.
Friesacher is ahead, you're right. Number 17 car has got ahead, so that's Patrick Friesacher. And yes, you say, oh, look at them, they're going to hit each other. Oh, this is so silly.
Stupid.
How ridiculous can you be? That was an outrageous manoeuvre from Antonio Garcia to try and take the place back. And you were talking about the team boss. It's Helmut Marko, and he is not going to be impressed by that.
Not known for his temper, or not known for his good temper, shall I say.
Look at this. Now, in fact, Friesacher was a bit slow out of that proceeding. Actually, I have to say, I take back that a little bit. Garcia had a right to be where he was, but it was a risky manoeuvre because Friesacher probably didn't expect him to be there.
No, it's not an overtaking place, is it? It was purely and simply because Friesacher ran slightly wide. Here we go.
That was, well, just ridiculous to take the 2 off. I mean, that was the sort of overtaking manoeuvre you would only really gamble on the last lap, perhaps. But to do that against your teammate in the early stages of the race, that really wasn't a clever idea from Antonio Garcia, young Spaniard who's moved up from the Open Formula Nissan Series. Friesacher has moved up from German Formula 3, and I think they're going to have a lot of explaining to do.
I think that's part of the problem we discussed just now regarding sprint races. If you're used to a race lasting perhaps half an hour, maximum 40 minutes, and suddenly you're in a race situation which is can be twice as long as that, if not more. You forget you've got so much more time to play with and so much more time to think about getting past a guy who's slower than you. Quite clearly Friesacher was going to be quicker than him during the race, but he should have really thought about that a little bit harder before he made the move. Yeah,
that's right. Certainly put himself in a bit of a no-win situation there, I think. Friesacher was going to have to turn in at some point. Looking at Filiberti, I see why, because Filiberti had a spin driving for the Prost Junior team.
Broken his wing as well, I think.
Right, so not good news for him. Antonio Pizzonia is our race leader, and still ahead of Thomas Enge. The gap up to 1.8 seconds by the looks of things. Sparaffico is in 3rd position. Justin Wilson is in 4th place ahead of Jamie Mello. Mark Webber in 6th place at this point, and so far so good for Pizzonia, putting in some pretty impressive lap times and still just edging away ever so slightly from Thomas Enge.
It looks like he's lapping in the high 27s, and everyone else is in the 28s, so he's pulling away.
Meanwhile, further down the order, driver for the sister team Supernova, Mario Haberfeld, is trying to work his way through the ranks after starting from the very back of the grid. And, well, he's managed to get past quite a few cars already, and now he's trying to get past the other Prost Junior car there, just coming through. And we'll see whether he gets a chance to come down on the inside as they head up towards the first corner. And now decides against it, switches back, and there isn't quite the opportunity to do that. So Gabriele Verano, that is, who's holding on to that position. And Mario Haberfeld finding it hard work to overtake. It's never easy, is it, Gareth? And these identical cars he's got a, having said that, looks as though he's got a good run out of the centre S. Should be a good chance here.
Yeah, it's quite comfortable in the end. No, you're right. I mean, it's very difficult. I know what Haberfeld did then was he actually got such a good run out of the last corner onto the straight and pulled out and got onto the limiter, and he had to go back in again into the slipstream because he just didn't have enough revs on the engine to actually get past the guy in front.
These engines all limited at 9,000 revs. It's the same across the board. So presumably getting the gearing right, something you were talking about earlier. Of course, it changes when you're in traffic.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the gearing in the cars will be exactly right for running alone, but once you're running in traffic, in behind the car, in the car slipstream, your revs will go that much higher. But obviously, you've still got the same top gear, so you'll reach that much sooner. It's Maslov, I think, it's not Darren.
Yeah, that's Victor Maslov, teammate to Britain's Darren Manning. Manning's not having a particularly good weekend so far. They don't seem to have got the setup right at Arden Team Russia. And his teammate has just taken a quick trip across the gravel. Yeah, just lost it, ran wide, bouncing across the gravel trap there. Fairly dramatic stuff, but
missed the wall anyway.
Yeah, I think he kept it off. Yeah, beached it, didn't he, as well, over the curve there. So Victor Maslov struggling. Now, where is Darren Manning? He's down in 8th position.
Yeah,
right.
So he's an 8 points.
Moved up quite well, has Darren Manning. That's the teammate to this man, Victor Maslov. Up into 8th place. Darren started down in 14th position, so he's going to hope for a bit more action happening up front that perhaps will take care of a few cars. He can then pick up 1 or 2 as well. He's got a chance to get into the points here today. Pizzonia continues on his pretty comfortable path, as it has proved to be so far. Started on the 2nd row of the grid, remember, but then saw one of the front row men get into trouble at the start. That was Riccardo Sparaffico. He saw Jamie Mello up front, but Pizzonia himself got into 2nd place. It was a good start from him from the 2nd row of the grid. Moved up to 2nd, and then, of course, when Jamie Mello had some sort of problem, which we still don't know, almost looked like he'd managed to knock the engine off or something, turn the engine off inadvertently. He slowed so dramatically. Pizzonia managed to go past and has led since then. More of a battle perhaps building up for 2nd position, and it looks to me as though that could be developing quite nicely. Antonio Pizzonia still with that very comfortable lead, but look at the 2nd placed man, Thomas Enge, with Rodrigo Sparaffico in 3rd place. And that's really, I think, where the battle may come, though, over the coming laps, because Sparaffico really is shadowing Tomáš Enge.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the lap times, actually, and Sparaffico did a 27.9 the last lap, which is very quick. Enge and Pizzonia are both in the 28, so he was fastest on that last lap.
So Pizzonia, very, very comfortable up front so far. Maintain the concentration in these high temperatures, but there's nothing new to him, being a Brazilian from Amazon country, so I can't imagine that it being a little warm out there is going to affect him in the least. I'm sure, in fact, he feels more comfortable than he has done on many occasions at a cold and wet British circuit when he's been racing in the Formula Vauxhall Junior or Formula Renault or British Formula 3 series, as he has done over the last few years. Really has got a pretty impressive CV behind him over the last few years, having won 5 single-seater championships in 4 years. That includes a couple of Winter Series championships, but nonetheless, he's certainly done extremely well in British motorsport. Now on the international stage, and I tell you what, with a debut like this, he's going to start creating a little more interest. He's already created some, but he's going to create some more interest amongst those Formula 1 teams.
Yeah, I mean, he did that, what we discussed earlier, he attracted Benetton last year, I think, didn't he, and had a test with them once or twice. And like you said, if he carries on this sort of form in 3000, then he'll definitely be a target for somebody for next year.
Unfortunately, didn't race at Macau. I think that was partly because he was testing and had a champ car test as well at the end of last year, so he didn't actually compete at the big end-of-season Formula 3 spectacular at Macau, but it doesn't seem to have hurt him any.
No, I think he should have done it, really, because the concern is always he's opting out of fighting Europe or the world's best. I mean, Macau is an end-of-season race where everybody in the world goes to the top F3 drivers. It's all very well beating those in Britain, but you then measured against everybody else out there. And the fact that he didn't do it, people always sort of look upon that badly, I think.
Still, if you come out and win your next race, which is in 3000, you can probably get away with it.
That makes up for it.
So far, he's doing that. Tomáš Enge's got away again from Sparaffico. Look at that. A moment ago, they were pretty much nose cone to gearbox, but that has changed. Justin Wilson, there he is in the number 10 car, British driver from Sheffield originally, and running very quickly at the moment. And now he's perhaps got a chance to make up some ground. We're looking at a lock-up from Joel Kamatias, the Swiss driver driving for the KTR team. There's several people, in fact, just locking up front tyres under heavy braking, but nothing to worry about. Now, there's Tomáš Enge, Sparaffico and Justin Wilson. 22 years old is Justin, and as mentioned, in his 3rd season of this Formula 3000 championship, and he got into it because of winning the 1998 Formula Palmer Audi series. That was his prize for 1999, to do a season of Formula 3000, and he's been impressive, there's no doubt about it, over the last couple of years, but he's still to take that first victory. That's what he needs now to really establish himself at the top flight of this series.
Yeah, personally, I think it's a matter of time. I mean, he's been really impressive in his 2 seasons so far, and I think this is obviously a big year for him. He has to do it this year or go and do something else. I don't think more than 3 years would be healthy in 3000.
No, that's right.
He's got the ability, and I think he's got the car underneath him to do the job as well. So if it's not this weekend, it'll be one weekend this year, I'm sure.
That's right, and the schedule this year sees some 12 races. That's up a little bit from last year. They had 10 events during 2000, up to 12 races, including this first ever race outside Europe. That's a whole new experience, and it's good to see that, of course, all the races do support the Grand Prix, so it's valuable circuit knowledge that's being gained, and of course being able to show off in front of the Grand Prix teams. Although, having said that, Gareth, as we know, the Formula 1 teams are a little bit busy, aren't they, doing their own thing at the weekend to really pay much attention.
Yeah, I think the point you made about learning the circuits and getting used to the atmosphere as well, those 2 things are very important for a young driver. I think the point you made about the F1 teams watching, it's a nice thought, isn't it, but whether they actually do or not, I mean, they are busy, and I think actually having the time to sort of watch an hour and a half 3000 races is a bit much. I think probably they look at the sheets, the time sheets. I mean, for example, Montoya came to their attention in 3000, and Frank Williams snapped him up. But I don't think they actively sit down and watch the race. I'd be very surprised if they do.
There isn't much opportunity to do that, I don't think, but I think they will get to hear about this if it stays the way it is. It's a remarkable debut for Antônio Pizzonia.
I think if it's or one-off, perhaps not so much. If Pizzonia can do it consistently, if he can put himself at the front all the time, like Montoya did in 3000, that's when your name becomes taken seriously. Winning one here or whatever, one there is not quite good enough. You've got to be up there consistently for them to look at you seriously, or have a good backer.
Well, the battle continues for second, third, fourth places. Thomas Enge, and out is Mario Haberfeld. Mario Haberfeld clambers out of his car, and we haven't seen what's happened there. Remember, he was the one who had to start right at the back after stalling as they went away on the formation lap. And poor Mario, another former British Formula 3 champion himself back in 1998, sadly out of this first race of the season in what is a crucial year as he desperately tries to get an opportunity to move up to Formula 1 or Champ Cars and really make a name for himself. Let's take another look. Well, we don't really see much here. Just coasted to a halt, so it looks like some sort of technical problem.
Yeah, looks fine.
So Mario Haberfeld stands aside. That's another Brazilian out. We saw the front row man Sperafico out very early in this race, and now we've seen Mario Haberfeld go out as well. Jamie Mello, the initial leader, still in there. He's in 5th place, but doesn't seem to be able to do much about this little group ahead of him. There is Jamie Mello, 5th position, being chased by Mark Webber, and that's quite a good little battle going on there. I think Webber will be pushing all the time, just looking for any little chink in the armour of the young Brazilian to see if he can squeeze through and gain another point, perhaps move up into 5th place, which would score him 2 points. Same scoring system as Formula 1, 10 points for the victory, and that's what Antônio Pizzonia wants. Coverage of the Formula 3000 race from Interlagos continues here on Eurosport. We'll be right back after the break. Welcome back to Eurosport's coverage of the first round of the FIA International Formula 3000 Championship race from Brazil. The boys in Brazil are doing their stuff. We're watching the Frenchman Sébastien Bourdais, and driving for the Dams team, one of the fancied runners this year, there's no doubt about that. Dams, along with Supernova, the most successful team in the Formula 3000 Championship, although, I have to say, most of Dam's success came a few years ago now, Gareth.
Yeah, I think 10 years ago, wasn't it? I mean, the year of Alan McNish and Eric Comas. I think they haven't had success really. They had won a race with Jamie Davis in 1997, but really consistently they haven't been up there for quite some time.
But Sébastien Bourdais has things expected of him. He's the French Formula 3 champion of 99, now going into his 2nd season. Was with Prost Junior team last year and looked to be staying with them, and then all of a sudden, suddenly Prost Junior team selected another driver, a couple of other drivers in fact, neither of whom have got particular racing pedigree behind them, but so Sébastien Bourdais was soon snapped up by the Dams team because they recognise him to be a real talent.
Yeah, I think the Prost decision was based upon money, and Bourdais is quick. I mean, last year he was very quick straight out the box, and he's a good young talent, I think.
Positions otherwise staying the same. It's still Antônio Pizzonia who leads. Thomas Enge is in 2nd position, chased by Rodrigo Sperafico. With Justin Wilson in 4th, Jamie Mello is in 5th place, and Mark Webber in 6th position. You can see Bourdais himself 7th, ahead of Darren Manning. David Saelens is up there as well. Further on down the list, Giorgio Pantano, who made that early pit stop, is 13th. Derek Hill, the American, in 14th. Further on down, we've got Bash Leinders 16th. Justin Keane is in 17th position. Interesting to see Justin out there, Gareth. Of course, we've seen Justin competing in British motorsport for quite a few years now, from Formula Ford up through to Formula Palmer Audi. He was runner-up in the Formula Palmer Audi Championship last year, and this really was a last-minute deal, wasn't it, for him to come out?
It must have been. I have to confess, I didn't even know he was going to be on the grid until I saw qualifying yesterday. So I have to confess, I didn't realise he was here.
No, it was a very late deal with the KJR Monaco Motorsport team. 2 teams have combined this year, and Justin hadn't done any testing at all before coming to this race.
That's tough.
That is hard, isn't it?
Yeah, it is very tough. I mean, new circuit, new car, new team, it's very difficult. You can't expect to get more than experience from this weekend, really.
Well, I'm sure he'll be using it for just that, and then hope that things come together for him later on through the season. But a great opportunity for him. He's been knocking on the door of really top international single-seater stuff over the last few years, and very much with Formula Palmer Audi last year with that runner-up position. Now he's got a chance in Formula 3000. Pizzonia almost has it on the grass, doesn't he, turning in
he
to
did
the
yesterday, he qualified once yesterday. He did put wheels on the grass there. He just concentration on the laps. If he does that in the race, he'll have a shock, I think. So
yes, that's right.
I'm sure he doesn't do that.
Can't afford to make too many mistakes. Coming up into the Ferradura corner, the right-hander. That's a pretty quick right-hander, virtually flat out, but now they're into this very technical section, aren't they?
Yeah, you need to have the car well sorted for this middle section here, because it's good change of direction is very important. It's very fiddly.
Get good traction out of those 2 tight hairpins as well. This is another of the tight hairpins. This is the Bico de Pato corner, and then through the left-hander we've seen a few fun and games down here. This is where Montoya went off in qualifying today in the Williams BMW. Had to run back to the pits and get his spare car, And it's always a corner that we see dramas at in the Grand Prix. So far today, we haven't seen too many problems through there for the Formula 3000s, except for that very strange slowdown that Jamie Mello did earlier on when he was leading the race and then was suddenly passed by several cars in one go virtually. Pizzonia crosses the line, and we're just over half distance now in this 35-lap race. So he's going well and still pulling away from his opposition.
Got a 4-second gap now, so it looks pretty comfortable.
Now this is that's Thomas Enge into the pits, and this was the man who was running in second place. Now what on earth has happened to Thomas Enge?
It looks like a penalty, doesn't it?
It does. It looks like a penalty, and now this might be going back to that pass of Jamie Mello. I wonder if Jamie Mello did back off for the yellows, and that is why he had to come in for a stop-and-go penalty.
Yeah, maybe the stewards have re-looked at the evidence and decided Pizzonia had no choice but to go past, because Mello jumped on the brakes, but I think Enge was far enough back to actually avoid going past and went through because Pizzonia did, so maybe they decided he's guilty, but Pizzonia is not.
Well, that is going to cause some controversy, isn't it? But that has changed the order. It brings Mark Webber up into fifth. Of course, it brings Rodrigo Sparafico into second. Justin Wilson with a possible podium finish here, now up into third position. And that's good news for him. Sébastien Bourdais in sixth. And Darren Manning only just outside the points in seventh. Antonio Pizzonia out in front in the first Formula 3000 race of 2001. About to flash across the line once again. Past... oh, no, he's in as well. He's not flashing past the line at all. He is into the pits, and this is a penalty, presumably as well, because of passing Jamie Mello under yellows, and this is changing the race completely, Gareth.
I think it's unfair. I mean, there's... and Sparafico as well.
Yeah, Rodrigo Sparafico, the second of those two cars coming in.
So Justin Wilson leads.
Indeed, he does.
Excellent.
At the moment, yes, now that is quite something. But will he stay out there? Now then, they have to sit and wait. It looks like it's a 10-second penalty, and that has completely ended the hopes of Antonio Pizzonia to take his debut Formula 3000 victory. And there is our new race leader. It's Britain's Justin Wilson. So what a remarkable turnaround here. Behind him is the man who had the initial lead. Now, what I'm not sure about, Gareth, is when did Justin go past Jamie Mello?
It was on the restart.
Right.
And they had a good old scrap. In fact, he put Mello on the grass.
Right, so he earns that one. So he will not have to come into the pits and serve a penalty.
No.
So that's the crucial point here. Justin Wilson has deserved that lead position. He's earned it. He didn't pass Jamie Mello under the yellows, and therefore will be able to stay out there. But all of a sudden, from running in a good solid fourth place, he finds himself leading this Formula 3000 race. Yet to win a race in the championship. Boy, what a start to the season this would be.
That would. Excellent. He's lapping quicker than Mello as well, according to the lap chart, so looking quite comfortable.
Yeah, good stuff. Jamie Mello back in second place. The man who slowed so suddenly, so dramatically. Oh, I thought he was coming in for a second there, didn't he? When he's away to cut across. That is the racing line through onto the start-finish straight to cut across the pit lane like that. And Justin Wilson stays out there as we expect him to. We don't expect him to have any sort of penalty, but those others have dropped down the order now. We'll try and find out for you how far back they are.
Pizzonia's fourth.
It looks like Pizzonia's in fourth place. Hopefully we'll get another look at that in just a moment. But whether he's got the sort of pace to be able to actually close up, I don't think he is. Let's just take a look there. We've got Mark Webber in third. I think it's showing fourth simply because he went over the line in the pits.
Yeah.
And I think you'll find that he's actually quite a lot further down than that once the times come through. Let's just take a look at the race order now. Wilson, Mello, Webber in third, Bourdais, Manning fifth, David Saelens in sixth. And then we'll wait to go further on down the order as we look to see Pizzonia in 12th, according to the screen there, and that's backed up by our information. In fact, we're showing him in 11th place, so he may have gained one position on that last lap. But remember, only the top 6 places score any points, so there's not a lot of use in finishing in 11th place. And what a disappointment that will be for Pizzonia, who thought that he'd done the job right. Now, what they should have done, of course, if they had overtaken him and then backed off and let him go back past again, they would have got away with it.
Yeah, but it's difficult to know what to do in that position. You're suddenly leading the race, and like I said, in my opinion, Mello just jumped on the brakes way too hard, way too soon, unnecessarily, and left the guys behind, well, certainly with Pizzonia with no option.
Yeah,
So I think it's a little bit unfair, but unfortunately you can't argue the toss now.
Look at this battle going on for second now. Jamie Mello on the inside. Mark Webber trying to go around the outside of him into the centre S. Locked up, but managed to keep it under control. That's not going to help his chances much, though, because that right front tyre certainly took a pounding as he locked it up into the left-hander, and Mark Webber had a good opportunity, didn't quite come off, but he's still hunting around there looking for an opportunity.
Well, it all helps Wilson, because Wilson's will carry on pulling away with these two fighting behind him.
Yeah, great stuff for him. He can look in his mirrors and see the gap opening up that little bit more.
And Mark can see that. He'll want to push hard to make sure he gets past Melo as soon as possible.
Yes, and put Justin Wilson perhaps under a little bit of pressure in the remaining parts of this race. There's still some 12 laps to go. Mello just locking up a little bit through under heavy braking there. Keeps it together just about. That was through the Laranja corner and through this other tight sequence. You can see he really does seem to have a bit of a problem with locking up. And look how wide he's gone this time. Great chance for Webber this time. Surely Webber's done it. Shuts the door on him. And that's Webber up into second.
Yeah, Mello made a straightforward mistake and Mark capitalised. Should be good now to see how much he wills Justin in, or not.
Well, I said when I watched qualifying yesterday that Webber wasn't having a good day, but if he kept his head, he still had a good chance. He is chasing the championship, there's no doubt about that this year, and Webber has done that so far in this race. Look at how wide Mello went.
And once you get wide, even slightly onto those marbles, then you really, it magnifies it and it gets even worse.
Seems as though those front tyres have gradually been locking up more and more over the last few laps. Once you start locking it, it seems to just keep on happening.
Again and again, yeah.
So Webber now second place. There is Mark Webber with the Benetton Renault colours on the car. He is the Benetton Renault test driver as well, switching from Formula 1 to 3000. Rips a tear off from the visor as he now goes on the chase of Justin Wilson. Will he be able to close that gap up in the remaining part of this race? Wilson has a very, very healthy advantage, you have to say, at the moment. But Webber with a potential podium finish after qualifying on the 5th row of the grid. Well, I don't think he's going to do anything too stupid here. He knows that this race is coming to him to a large extent, and the second place may well be enough for him. Mark Webber then, second position for him. Justin Wilson, our race leader, as we continue with just 11, nearly just 10 laps to go in this opening round of the Formula 3000 Championship. There is Jamie Mello. He's still there, still in third position, but struggling over the last few laps, and he's going to have to watch out. I think that's Sébastien Bourdais coming up behind him. It is the Frenchman. He's in fourth. Darren Manning is in fifth. David Saelens in sixth. Joel Comathias is in seventh. Now, big roar from the crowd there. I don't know quite what that was about. We'll try and get a chance to see if anything strange happened out of the last couple of corners. Might have been something. No, looks all pretty much as it should do as they come through. Webber, Mello, so the other leaders all coming through safely, and Justin Wilson still with that very healthy advantage from the Australian Mark Webber. Oh, this is a nerve-wracking time for him, but also a great feeling for Wilson, as he knows this could be his opportunity to take his first win.
Yeah, he knows how to win a race, because obviously he's got a good record in the lower junior formula, but that's something different compared to winning a 3000 race. So he's got to keep his cool if he can. It's easy to sit here and say that, but he's got to keep his cool and concentrate and just get into a rhythm. You know, just focus on getting into a rhythm.
He's had a pretty good career, hasn't he, Gareth, coming up through the ranks. Formula Vauxhall Junior. He was the runner-up in the Formula Vauxhall Series in '96. It was the year after that didn't quite work out for him. He was sort of expected to win the Formula Vauxhall title with Paul Stewart Racing, but he came up against a very rapid teammate in Luciano Berti. And Berti it was who actually really dominated that championship. And Justin didn't quite get it together that year for whatever reason, but came back very strongly the following year to win that first ever Formula Palmer Audi championship.
Yeah, it happens. I mean, drivers have certain years where things don't quite click for them or whatever, perhaps don't gel with the team or whatever, and have a struggle. But it doesn't mean to say they're a bad driver. As he's proved, you know, he's leading a 3000 race, so he's definitely got the ability.
Definitely. He's shown that already over the last couple of seasons in 3000. And what a great performance this would be for the team. It's a British team based up in Norfolk, Nordic Racing, team boss Derek Mower, and run by his son Chris. And what a tremendous achievement this would be if they can hold on to take victory here in Brazil, the first race outside Europe. They've had one win in the past as the Nordic team, but, well, they would just love to add this one, the season opener, to that tally.
Yeah, I think what Chris Noah was saying beforehand in the preview was about the new sponsors having to perform for them. They should be fairly well pleased with this, I would have thought, if they can hold on to this win.
Yeah, now we're looking at Thomas Enge, his teammate, to Justin Wilson, who of course had to have that penalty. Pizzonia is in 12th place after making that stop, 10-second and go penalty. So Pizzonia came out of it best. Thomas Enge's down in 14th place, Rodrigo Sparafico 15th. So those are the main players who've lost out after passing Jamie Mello under yellows earlier and having to come into the pits. And it's really dropped them right down the field, and Pizzonia unable to really make any progress. And that just shows you how evenly matched these cars are. There was the man that was running away with this race up front earlier on, Gareth, Antonio Pizzoni. He's now in 12th, and now he's stuck, isn't he?
That's the problem. It is so very hard to overtake. I mean, also on modern circuits, but this is probably better than most. But it is on modern circuits, I mean, these cars, it's very, very hard.
Such tiny differences between each and every car. They are basically the same cars. Fractional differences in terms of setup on the car, but they're the same tires, same engines. Tiny differences in how the driver extracts the maximum, but of course it just makes it so difficult to get that run on somebody else and be able to pass them. And Pizzonia's finding that now that he's down, languishing in 12th place. This race has seen a change of fortunes all the way through, right from the beginning when we lost Riccardo Sperafico, the front row man who fell off at the first corner. Then we saw Jamie Mello leading and looked to be in great shape. Pizzonia into second. Then Mello was passed when the yellows came out. Nobody dropped back behind him, so eventually Pizzonia, who seemed to be running away with this race, was penalised, brought into the pits. Pizzonia now finds himself down in 12th place. The other drivers that were also penalised are way back down the field. And it's this man, Justin Wilson, who is leading the first race of the season. Finished in 5th place in the championship overall last year. Best finish was a 2nd place at the A1 ring in Austria. That was a good performance, but this one could be even better. Trying to chase down those 10 maximum points for the victory. Coming around to complete another lap here, past this pit lane entry. They drive almost through the pit lane entry as taking their line through that corner. And then hard on the brakes. I'm sure we would have seen a few of the Brazilian fans disappearing now that there's not a Brazilian up front in this race. The Brazilians were the top 4 places on the grid, and now look at them. Where's the, well, we still got Jamie Mello in 3rd place. 7 laps to go, and Mello looking to be the best of the Brazilians in 3rd place. But it's not a bad day for the Brits. We've got 2 Brits in their top 6. Wilson leading, Manning is in 4th, and Australia's Mark Webber in 2nd position. So good stuff. Pizzonia has gained 1 place. He's moved up into 11th now.
Yeah, the gap between Webber and Wilson is pretty much stagnant. It's been around the 3.5 second mark for about three or four laps now. He's down to 3.3 on that lap then.
So it doesn't look as though
away.
Mark is not really closing that gap up. Justin is lapping very quickly. He's not faltering under the pressure of leading a race. He's not making little mistakes or backing off too much. Sometimes you've got to judge that pace, haven't you, Gareth? When you're out in front of such an important race like this, if you say, right, I've got to take it a little bit carefully, then one of 2 things can happen. You can either slow down too much and they catch you up, or of course you lose concentration.
Well, I think the famous one there was Senna in 88 or 89, wasn't it, at Monaco? So far ahead it was embarrassing, and just lost concentration because he tried to back off.
Sometimes it's best to just keep going flat out. It looks as though Justin is pretty much doing that because no one is catching him, no one is really closing up on him. And as we watch him down into that first corner, the Senna S, the left, then right, hard on the power as they accelerate through. This is an anti-clockwise track. I reckon the old necks might be getting a bit stiff by now.
Especially Justin's, because he sits higher than most.
Yeah, a tall man. He is a tall man, and this track with a predominance of left-handers, different to most European circuits that normally go clockwise, meaning the driver's neck's taking a pounding on the opposite side for a change. It doesn't seem to be affecting him at this point. It certainly shouldn't. They should have done plenty of training in preparation for this race, but it shouldn't be an issue to drivers at this level. But nonetheless, it's always difficult, isn't it, training for that particular aspect of driving a high grip car. Trying to train those neck muscles, never an easy thing to do.
No, it's very hard.
So Justin continues on his way so far. Wilson leads Mark Webber in 2nd place. The gap still pretty much constant between Justin Wilson and Mark Webber. And Justin Wilson in the Coca-Cola Nordic Racing Lola is running away so far with this race. He's seen several people go out in front of him, several people penalised, but nonetheless, he has been right up there throughout qualifying and the race, and he looks to be the man who will win the first race of the season. Looking at the American Derek Hill, who's being chased by Justin's teammate, Thomas Enge, and Enge was one of those up front who got penalised for passing under yellows and had to make a stop in the pit lane as a result of that penalty. And now he's trying to get past the American. Derek Hill, the son of former world Formula 1 champion Phil Hill. Back in 1961 he won the championship with his dad. And Derek now trying to follow in the footsteps. And he's come through American motorsport mainly, although the last couple of years he's been racing in Europe, competing in the Formula Parma Audi series and then the Italian Formula 3000 championship last year. Big tall chap is Derek. And oh look, he's under pressure now from Thomas Enge, and Enge has got down the inside there. Wasn't too much of a battle in the end. Good under braking was the Czech driver, so he goes through. But going back to Derek, taller again, like Justin a little bit, like Justin Wilson, two of the taller racing drivers I've come across, certainly. But these Formula 3000 cars, I'm glad to say, plenty of room in the cockpit, so not too much difficulty for them.
I used to rattle around in it when I was driving.
Yeah, big car. Of course, last year for this car, wasn't it, Gareth?
I believe so.
Lola. Let's just take another look. Talk us through this a little bit.
Oh, it's textbook manoeuvre. I mean, just get in the slipstream and under the braking as the car in front brakes, just come out and brake a fraction later up the inside. It looks fairly straightforward, and I have to say, for any driver of Enge's ability, it is a fairly straightforward manoeuvre.
So no problem for him. He slips through quite comfortably, and in fact, that's is that Sparaffico who's gone through with him? I think it is. Yes, that is. Yeah. Sparaffico's gone through with him. That's Rodrigo, who was up front initially, was another one of those penalised for passing under yellows, and so therefore he now has moved off one position.
Justin's actually extending the lead by about a tenth a lap over the last 2 or 3 laps now. It's up to 3.7.
So textbook stuff from him as well.
Well, indeed.
We're seeing some demonstration drives here this afternoon, and Justin Wilson is putting on a great drive at the front of the field so far. 31 laps completed, just 4 laps to go. Mark Webber in second to Justin Wilson. Jamie Mello, the Brazilian, in third. Sébastien Bourdais from France in fourth. David Saelens, the Belgian, in fifth. The Swift, Joel Matthias, in sixth. Britain's Darren Manning dropped down to seventh. Now, I don't know what's happened there, but he was up in the points.
So fourth.
Something very odd has happened there, because Darren Manning has dropped well down the order, and that's disaster for him in a way, because scoring points in 3000 is not easy. He was up in the points, and something has occurred to drop him out. So we'll have another look at that in a minute, but seventh. Yeah. We're showing him in 7th place on our screens here.
His lap time, that lap was a 1:42, so whatever he did was fairly drastic.
Yes, that compares to 1:27, so
yeah.
He lost a good chunk of time, around 15 seconds on that previous lap, so something major happened to him.
Down an escape road or something by the look of it.
Justin Wilson in no such trouble, and looks pretty good through there, nice and accurate on the curves, just taking the line cleanly, taking out to the edge. You can just hear the rev limiter cut in on the exit of the left-hander, building up to their maximum speeds, around 180 miles an hour before they're getting onto the brakes at the end of that straight. Now, this might be what happened earlier on. Let's just take a little look. This a battle that was going on further down.
And
Jan Goody, I think that is, who's the late entry. That's just, I think he was just being lapped, actually. I don't think that was a battle for position. Joel Matthias in 6th place anyway, and that's a good performance for him. But Justin Wilson, that engine sounds strong, it sounds fresh, and the boys from Zytek will be hoping it holds together for the remaining few laps.
Not the Justin, it doesn't. It sounds like it's rattling the Justin, I can tell you now.
Well, to us it sounds good enough from the outside. I'm sure he can hear all sorts of odd noises, strange creaks and groans from the car, but it looks good to us, and he's only got to last a couple more laps to take his first victory in the Formula 3000 Championship, and making history and doing that, of course, by winning the first race outside Europe. So it would be a fantastic start, just ideal for him to his season, as we look back to 2nd place man Mark Webber, and the gap has maintained itself fairly consistently throughout the last laps. Just 2 laps to go. Jamie Mello in 3rd, and the Brazilian who had pole position slowed down under that yellow, then got beaten by Justin Wilson at the restart, and that's really where Justin won this race.
Yeah, I mean, he was strong on the restart. Like I said, he had Melo on the grass down the straight we've just seen, out of the first turns there. And good racing, good as he did last year. He showed himself to be a real strong racer last year, and that's what won the race.
It is, that's right. That's the move of the race, the move that put him ahead of Melo. Since then, Melo has dropped one more place to Mark Webber, but by that time, Justin had managed to open up sufficient advantage that he wasn't troubled by the Australian coming through into second. And now he's just got to do about a lap and a half to tick this one off. The first of 12 rounds in the International Formula 3000 Championship. And to take maximum points on the first round, well, that's just the perfect way to get things going. A long way to go through the season, 12 rounds in the championship. They'll be going to Imola for the next round in a couple of weeks' time, first of the European races, and in fact all of the remaining races will take place in Europe, all supporting the Grand Prix. Here he comes, he's going to start his final lap this time around, and Wilson across the line. One more lap to go, just 2.7 miles for the man from Sheffield, the 22-year-old, to take victory here in Brazil. Mark Webber and Jamie Melo coming through second and third, and it's quite a long way back then to fourth place man, the Frenchman Sébastien Bourdais. Impressive stuff though from Justin Wilson. Gareth, no doubt we've got two top British drivers in the series this year, both Justin and Darren Manning, but it's Justin who's taken the edge this time.
Yeah, I think last year Justin seemed to have a little bit more consistency than Darren could manage, and they're both good, quick drivers, but Darren seemed to be quick or sort of nowhere, whereas Justin was consistently in a points position, and Darren's dropped to 8th position now.
Oh, and Pantano's gone off. Giorgio Pantano, who was running, I think, in about 13th place. Let's take a look at the replay here. Oh, he got cut off pretty late there by that Piccini, I think, Andrea Piccini, who shut the door on him as they headed down into that first corner. I think Pantano thought he was going to make a bit of a move. Interesting one.
I would have put the blame more with Pantano there than the guy in front. He didn't seem to sure. I mean, the guy moved across and was obviously going to move across.
Yeah, so Pantano should have got himself out of the way. But here comes Wilson. The checkered flag will be ready for him as he comes out of the final corner this time. Justin Wilson, Nordic Racing. They're taking the first win of the 2001 season. He comes across the middle. He is over the moon with that. Oh, Justin, don't go too mad. Oh, he got away with it. Wow. Now, when the luck's going your way, it really goes your way. Well, I don't think he quite meant to do it like that, but it was pretty impressive, wasn't it? Justin Wilson experimenting with a new style of celebrating. Not quite the victory donut. It was almost the victory slam into the pit wall, but he got away with it, and he is the winner here in Brazil. Well, that's one way of celebrating, I suppose. I don't think the team would have been too impressed if he'd slammed it into the wall. Let's take another look at this. What do you reckon he did here?
Embarrassed himself, I think. He'll tell you he meant it, I think. Well, I think he did.
Great. Well, he managed to keep the lock on and get it spun back round the right way.
More by luck than judgment, I think.
That wasn't intentional.
No.
So how did he do that? Did he change down suddenly?
No, I think he seemed to put the brakes on too hard, I think, and had a bit of lock on at the same time.
Amazing.
And the back end just got away.
Not a common thing to see on a single-seater car, is it? It's not a rally car. No handbrake. It looked like a handbrake manoeuvre, didn't it, really? It looked like he'd have pulled the handbrake on, unless Nordic Racing have done something very special to their car.
Secret of success.
Perhaps it is. They've got a handbrake on the car. But Justin Wilson is the winner here at Interlagos in Brazil. And the perfect start to the season for the young British driver has seen him stay out of trouble, stay out of problems with the yellow flags, and come through to take victory ahead of Mark Webber and Jamie Melo. Making his way round, not quite sheepishly, but certainly more carefully now on this slow-down lap after that amazing manoeuvre after crossing the line at the checkered flag. Justin Wilson, race winner here of the slightly shorter race distance that they're running this year, 150 kilometres. That's down around 30 miles from the race distance they were doing last year, but just under the hour, 53 minutes, 48.5 seconds for Justin to take his first win in the championship, first victory for him since 1998 when he was winning races in the Formula Halma Audi series. He's put all that experience of the last couple of years to good use. Stayed with the team, of course, and continuity always so important.
Yeah, it certainly helps them. If you know, if you're comfortable with a setup, then you do get more out of the driver, or the driver gets more out of himself, shall I say? And everyone's happy and gets on. If there's a little bit of unsettlement there and you're not quite happy, then you won't perform as well.
Well, it's good stuff to see him coming into the pit lane, and for Derek Moe and Chris Moe running that team, this is a special moment indeed. Second victory for the Nordic team in Formula 3000, but it's been a while since the last, so this will just make them over the moon. Into Parc Fermé, and you'll see the tall, lanky frame of Justin Wilson extricating himself from that narrow cockpit, but not as narrow as many, and that gives him enough space to move around, and I'm sure we'll see plenty of delight from him. Let's take a look at those results. Justin the winner, from Mark Webber in second place, Jamie Mello in third, Sébastien Bourdais, David Saelens and Joel Kamatias, the other point scorers. Golan seventh, Darren Manning, we still don't know quite what happened to him, but he dropped to eighth. Pizzonia did get up to ninth, so he did manage to overtake a few. Good day for Pizzonia in spite of that yellow flag infringement. Bast Leinders in 10th, and if Pizzonia can continue driving as well as he has done here this weekend, he will be one to watch throughout the rest of the season, there's no doubt about that. But after seventh, of course, nobody there scores any points, and it's points that matter as we go through the championship. Last few years, or certainly last year, we saw Bruno Junqueira not quite dominating, but he really had a very good run all the way through the championship. It is about consistency, there's no doubt. Let's work our way through the rest of the list here. Piccini 11th, Thomas Enge and Rodriguez for Africa 12th and 13th after their penalties. Derek Hill 14th ahead of Verano. Justin Keane got his car to the finish despite no testing before this race, ahead of Ananda Mikkola. Jan Goody, who came in very late to join the KJR Monaco Motorsport team. Giorgio Pantano, who we saw having that accident towards the end. Nicola Filiberti ending up in 20th position, and the drivers now making their way in. There is Antonio Pizzonia, bit of a shake of the head from Rodriguez Grafico. Pizzonia, you can see the disappointment after it looked as though he had this race won today, but that yellow flag infringement passing this car, number 30, is what cost him the race. And there's another disappointing man, the other twin brother, Rodrigo Grafico.
Yeah, that's doubly disappointing, the fact that it's in front of his home crowd, isn't it? To win your home race in your first ever race in 3000 would be some achievement.
Mark Webber's car sitting there. Good day for Mark Webber, having started back in 10th position on the grid and ending up with a podium finish. Third position for the Australian Mark Webber. Very likeable young man, very professional as well in the way he goes about his motorsport. That's Mark on the left-hand side, Justin Wilson in the middle, and Jamie Mello to the right. Great feeling for Justin Wilson. It's been a while coming into his third season now, but what a sweet victory this must be in Brazil. To win at Sao Paulo, that will really mean something to him. Mark Webber receiving his trophy for second place. Oh, and slight problem there with our picture, but there we are, the teams down below congratulating their men, and for Nordic Racing, a dream start to the season. Jamie Mello, there on the right, finishing third. That's his best result of his career so far. The fourth place last year. But, well, what a great start to the season we've had, and we will be catching up with the next round of the Formula 3000 Championship from Imola in 2 weeks' time. You'll be able to watch it all live here on Eurosport. The qualifying on Friday afternoon and the race itself on the Saturday afternoon preceding the San Marino Grand Prix. Thank you for joining us from Ben Edwards and Gareth Rees. I hope you'll be with us again for Formula 3000 on Eurosport. Bye-bye for now.